So welcome back to the second half where we're moving south to England. So the first talk is going to be from Andy Field from Brighton, who's going to talk a bit about using or teaching R using learnr. I'm sure Andy's far too modest to mention that he's written a number of books on R. So by all means, go and look at those in your favorite bookshop. So over to you, Andy.
Okay, sorry, I just need to
while Andy's just sorting that out, there's an interesting long post on the chat about our Shiny project. So do, if you've got comments along those lines, please do post them to the chat while Andy's talking to us.
Okay, are my slides visible?
They are.
Okay, thanks. Obviously, like everyone else, I'd like to thank the organisers for inviting me, although I did technically invite myself. So I'd like to thank myself for inviting myself to give this talk. So I'm going to talk about using learnr to create interactive R tutorials. And essentially, I'm going to spend a bit of time explaining what learnr is and how we've applied it at the University of Sussex. And I'm going to conclude with the things I've learned over the past 5 years. So, but before I do, I want to introduce you to the main character of this talk, who shares some similarities to me.
Is your name Andy?
I don't know how to answer that.
Simple yes or no.
Well, everyone calls me Andy, but my full name is Andrew, I think. So, no? Wait, yes.
So a few years ago, Andy was given the task at the University of Sussex of revamping all the methods modules. And one of the things that we decided to do is switch to R. And we've done this sort of in a staggered way. So in 2016, I took over the core statistics module for our undergraduate psychologists. So I'm in a school of psychology, and that's around about 100 students of quite mixed ability. And in 2019, we took our whole undergrad curriculum over to R as well. And we have 600 plus undergraduate students per year. So that's a pretty massive cohort. So we have large practical classes, so we have to teach in big groups. So, even our small groups are big, so 50 plus. And I mean, in the last couple of years, we've done sorts of combinations of hybrid and in-person. And when I took this on, when I decided we should teach R, I thought learnr would be the solution to teaching R. It has lots of benefits to it. I'll give you an example of a learnr tutorial in a minute, but essentially they are self-contained tutorials where students can learn to code, gives you lots of potential for doing flipped classroom stuff or for students working self-paced. It promotes active learning. They're actually coding. They're not just listening to you talk about coding. You can put quizzes in, you can get them working in little groups together and stuff like that. So it seemed, face value, a really, really good idea.
I'm going to say that there is at least a chance that I didn't think this through completely.
So was it the solution to, or the answer to my prayers? Well, first of all, let's have a look at what learnr is. So learnr is a package for R, which is written by the team that have bought us RStudio. So, it's very well supported, very well developed, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. It's basically a way for using R Markdown to write interactive tutorials. You can follow that link. I'll put a link to these slides in the chat afterwards. Tutorials can contain basically anything that you can put in a Markdown file, text, figures, equations. You can embed websites in them, do all sorts of things. The important thing is you can have code exercises in them, as I will show you in a minute. You can have quizzes, videos. If you write a Shiny app, you can put a Shiny app within your tutorial, stuff like that. You have lots of scope if you happen to know about CSS. You can do lots of things like style your tutorials in your own image, or you can just use the boilerplates, and they look pretty nice too. And you then deploy these tutorials, which I will talk about in a minute, and your students get enlightened. That's the idea. So this is an example of a learnr tutorial that's I have hosted somewhere. So this is a basic tutorial on using ggplot. So you can write basically like a handout where you explain a few things. I've got an image there to explain how layers work in ggplot. But the the real great thing about learnr is you can have these code chunks in. So here we've just got a little series of exercises where basically this whole tutorial is about explaining how to layer up plots. So, you can get them to sort of initiate the plot and go, oh, well, there's nothing on it. Well, how do we make there be something on it? We have to add a geom to it. So down here, we've got another exercise where they're asked to learn how to type. Unlike me, we can get them to add in a line and say, and run the code again, then, oh, right, well, we've now got something on our plot. So you can have these code exercises. As you can see, you can embed solutions. So, if they get stuck, you can actually, if they get stuck, you can actually tell them what they're supposed to be typing into those boxes. You can have little quizzes. So this is a quiz, which is supposed to demonstrate to them. So they're asked to run this bit of code here to generate this violin plot, and they're asked to switch around 2 of the lines of code and have a look at what happens to the plot. So they basically switch around the violin geom with the stat summary geom, and then run the code. And this is basically to show them that the violin is kind of sitting on top of the stat summary, so you can't see it anymore. And then there's the easiest quiz they're ever going to get in their lives, which is what happened when you switch the code around. The bars disappeared. Yay! And you can give them nice supportive messages to tell them how great they're doing. So this is kind of what it looks like. Have I got another type of quiz in there somewhere? Oh yeah, so here's another type of quiz where they can, this is like they're being asked to generate a certain kind of plot. And this is just to see, can they drag these code lines, because this is all about sort of the order of code when you're doing a plot. Can they drag these lines of code around in the right order to make sure that everything's visible? Phew, I was terrified that I was going to get that wrong. Yeah, so you can do lots of funky stuff. It's really quite a neat system. So once you've written a tutorial or a series of tutorials for your teaching, you have to deploy them in some way, shape, or form.
I have no idea what I'm doing, but I know I'm doing it really, really well.
That pretty much sums up the deployment situation. So you've got a few options. One is to put them on something known as a Shiny server, which is a server that basically has Shiny running on it. And you need one of those servers because every time the students do something in a code box, it has to be sent off to R to be processed and kind of sent back. So you can't just, you have to have Shiny on your server. So the first couple of years that I was running these modules, I set up my own Shiny server, which was an incredibly stupid thing to do, but I did it nevertheless. What this basically involved is getting a VPS. I didn't know what VPS was. I still don't really, to be honest, but I got one of those things somewhere. I learned a bit of Unix, not very much. I got my Shiny server up and running eventually, but yeah, it was really stressful and I didn't really know what I was doing. But I tell you what, when it actually worked for the first time, I felt amazing for about 5 minutes until it broke again. Now, you can persuade your university to do a Shiny server for you, and then someone else gets to do all that complicated stuff. I was not able to do that at Sussex, which is why I ended up doing it myself. You can get Posit, which is the new name for RStudio, the company. Posit have their own Shiny server facility. You can pay money to host stuff on their Shiny server. And also, if you Posit Cloud, which is like a cloud deployment of RStudio, there's no reason why you couldn't have your tutorials run on there. So you could give students a sort of raw file and get them to kind of run it on that cloud service, and that would work as well. I probably should have shown you like what's behind the tutorial, like some of the code, but I forgot, and also I'd have to start recommending therapists and stuff if I did that. So one of the advantages of deploying on a Shiny server, you can use lots of advanced features of learnr, like auto checking code, and you can do some assessment stuff as well, which I don't do because that requires a level of cleverness that I don't appear to have right now. You can, if you realize you've messed something up in your tutorial, you can tweak it and re-upload it, and students need never know. You're not reliant on them kind of reinstalling anything. So you are completely in control. Students can have whatever computers they have, and as long as they've got a web browser, you're good to go. The disadvantages of a personal server are that you are in control of it. So like the first couple of years when I was running this, I basically lived in constant high levels of anxiety that my server was going to break mid-term, and I'd have 600 students going, I can't access any of the tutorials. And yeah, there were a few touch and go moments along the way that have probably reduced my life expectancy considerably. Also, obviously, running a personal server, it costs me money. So while I was doing that, I was literally paying to do my own teaching, which is not really, it's supposed to be the other way around, I believe. Disadvantages of using a university server, obviously that's free, but you're not in control. You're reliant on ITS to do stuff for you. And, yeah, I'll probably stop there before I say something that will get me sued. Disadvantage of using the POSIT solutions or the RStudio cloud solutions is just cost, really. I mean, they are sort of the best things you can do in a way, but they cost a lot of money. So the other thing you can do is deploy your tutorials in a package. That's what I ended up doing, which involved learning how to write a package in the first place and then sticking it up somewhere. So I actually have two packages, although the Discover package is the one that I predominantly use now. So I sort of look at Adventure as sort of a first stab at doing it, and then I did it all a lot better with the Discover package, although it's not entirely complete yet. Packages are great. You're not reliant on a server. Students just install it on their own machines, or if you have POSIT Cloud or something, you can just install it up there and students have access to everything. So that probably is the way to go if you can stomach working out how to do a package. You are a bit restricted in that if you want to do sort of assessment and code checks, you can't do that with a packaged version. You have to have a sort of server version of learnr to do that. And obviously, if you have students installing the package on their own machines, then if you've messed something up, you would have to get all your students to reinstall the package every time you want to correct something. Obviously, if you're using like POSIT Cloud or something, that's not a problem because you can reinstall it and they'll never know.
Because we're smart.
Oh my God, are you okay?
Yeah, I'm good. Out of the way! Yeah! I call an ambulance! A different ambulance, the one I ran into! The kamikaze!
So we kind of think we've nailed it now, but it took a while. Year 3 in particular, thought I'd nailed it, but then a big ambulance appeared, which I ran headlong into. So here are some of the things that we've tried. We have tried using flipped classroom. So this is students doing the tutorials in their own time and then coming to a practical class having done them. This is great for students working at their own pace, especially as we have quite mixed ability groups. And for our postgrads, we tend to have them start the tutorials in an actual session and they just do stuff at home if they haven't finished it in time, or they can start at home, but we still have like a 2-hour session where they're expected to work through it. And we just kind of wander around. They can work in groups, they can work individually. And we just kind of, they stick up their hand when they get stuck and we help them. for the undergrads, when we were fully flipped with no in-class element, as you might imagine, quite a large number of students just didn't do them at all. And it was quite conducive to students disappearing without a trace. So we switched a little bit this year. Hang on, last year. We got Posit Cloud, so we now don't have students have RStudio on their machines at all. They just do everything through a web browser. We had mini assessments linked to the tutorials to try and encourage them to do it and stuff like that. In terms of our stress levels, Posit Cloud, if you can persuade your university to buy into something like that, then definitely do it. I think it has, especially for our current first years who have just come in and only ever known the Posit Cloud experience, we have pretty good engagement this year. And students who last year struggled, who are now second years, we've definitely had a few of those who are like, oh, wow, I actually get it now. And I can actually engage. Now I can engage with R because I don't have all these technical issues to get over. I'm sort of finding it much better. We still, for undergrads, have a hybrid model. So there are, because we have so many students, they have like a week where they're supposed to be in class, a week where they're off, doing it online. Again, that's still conducive to students disappearing without a trace, but I don't think that's anything to do with learnr. I think that's to do with a broken higher education system. The other thing to be aware of with learnr, and I think this is possibly the biggest disadvantage of it, is when students work in the tutorial environment, it creates a disconnect with R. So they learn how to code, they don't necessarily learn what to do with their own data, like get it in and out of R. And students also tend to copy from the solutions quite a lot to get them through the tutorial. So there's, a sense in which they don't always deeply process what they're doing. So ideally, what you want is students sort of working in Quarto and working on documents and being able to embed code in those documents. But of course, in the tutorials, they only have to do the code bit. They don't have to do the document bit. So like, how do you get them doing that? So the thing we do, this is primarily in my postgraduate module. We do a couple of like really intensive workshops at the beginning of term, which is all about getting data in and out of R using Quarto, how to produce documents. So the sort of basic workflow of everything. And then we ask them to keep a Quarto learning journal. So although they're doing a learnr tutorial each week, they are supposed to, in parallel, have a Quarto document where they are copying some of the code across, writing notes to themselves about stuff. And this does improve the sort of connection between working in RStudio and learning how to code. I think that's quite an important thing to do. So this isn't an example of a journal, but this would sort of be the idea. So they'd have RStudio running, they'd be doing a document in Quarto, and where they're doing their learnr tutorial, they'd be taking bits of code across and trying it out in RStudio. So they're not only working in the tutorial. The other thing I switched to doing this year is using more graduated hints than solutions. So in these sort of code boxes, you can do hints rather than solutions. So here's a hint where I've put some sort of placeholders like Tibble name where there's and var for x-axis, and they're supposed to replace them with like the variable name for the x-axis and things like that. So it sort of pokes them along little by little rather than giving them a solution. I mean, of course, they can still skip through all of this to the solution at the end. But I think that's quite helpful too. Another, oh God, what's down here? Yeah, another thing I use quite often is just putting like X's in. So I'll give them a bit of code, but they have to fill in the blanks. Okay, so that's it. learnr is a really, really powerful tool. If you can use Markdown, you can write a tutorial. The hard part is deploying it, I would say. Writing the tutorials is a bit time consuming, but not that hard. Other than that, I just want to acknowledge lots of the people that I teach with at Sussex who, are brilliant. Thank you for listening.
Thank you very much, Andy. Great, thank you. So while people are just getting their questions together, there's just something that sort of was occurring to me. So, I mean, I agree with you that the Posit Cloud seems a really good solution, albeit very expensive, I think. But anyway, but how do you then get the students to move on to having R just on their local machine? It's, you know, the danger is they're always relying on this cloud, and how do you move them? You know, well, obviously, eventually they need to start using it locally.
Yeah, I mean, I think you might have a slightly different perspective on this to me, working in a stats department compared to a psychology department, because actually most of our students probably don't care about using R once they've left their degree. There'll be we always have a small portion of students who get really into it, but it is the vast minority. So I think that's not so much of a problem for us, where we're teaching statistics within a discipline where, you know, the main exercise is not learning about statistics. I think if I wasn't teaching in a psych department, I might be inclined to sort of do a sort of weaning off, like in third year or something. So give them two years of doing it, and then for some of the third year modules go, okay, we're not going to use the cloud now.
Okay.
I don't know.
Thank you. No, that's good. Dawood, I can see you've got your hand up. Do you want to come in with your question?
Yes, thanks, Simon. Very great talk, Mark. I'm using learnr a lot myself in my teachings. Something that I couldn't figure out over the past few years is, so some of the things we were interested is getting feedback from the students on how they found learnr. So I was quite interested to find out a way that we can embed some feedback questions, like 5 skills Likert or whatever, that how they find that section of the materials useful. Have you came across to a way that can somehow we can embed these feedback type questions inside the learnr material and then collect data in some repository by chance?
So there's a package called GradeR, which you can if you Google GradeR, there's
yeah, I use GradeR for the designing assignments and multiple choices, those kind of things. But the issue is they want to store the data anywhere, so it's just inside the learnr. Students can get instant feedback on their attempt. But I'm more curious, students, for example, at the end of the learnr, I want to have a question that how did you find this course helpful or not? And they say yes, no, or give us some feedback. And that data will be stored somewhere outside that we can review and evaluate the results, something like that. But so I don't think GradeR can do that.
I've got a feeling it can if it's on a server, because we were looking into using it for assessment, and to use it with assessment, we would need, if we have quizzes that they answer, we would need to be able to get that data from the server and kind of map it back to the student. So I think there is a way, like I'm not 100% confident, but 6 months ago when I was reading about this, I think there is a way to get GradeR to, I think all your feedback questions would have to be like quizzes, like a multiple choice thing, did you find this material good, not so good?
Yeah, but with the quizzes, do you store data? Can you, for example, as an instructor, access to answers that the students give to the quizzes?
Yes, I think so. But like I said, I'm not 100% confident, but I watched a talk about using GradeR for assessment, which was covering that issue of needing to store the responses of students and get that back off the server. So I think there is a way to do it.
Okay, that's great. Thank you. I will try.
I'll try to track down the talk that I'm thinking of, and if I manage to do that in the 5 minutes after my talk, I'll post it in the chat.
Okay, that's great. Thank you so much.
Thanks. And there's a comment on using learnr in the chat, as I won't read it out, but from Mitcham in Glasgow. So Mark, very quick one, because you're speaking in a couple of minutes. So quick question.
Yeah, it is going to be quick. So Andy, you said that the issue of deployment was a major issue, and you talked about having a VPS and using Shiny apps, and then also using it in a package. Just want to make sure, have you in Sussex are you just using it in a package now, or are you still using a VPS?
No, we're using it in a package, But so we've used it in a package for a couple of years, might even be 3. But the big difference this year is that we have POSIT Cloud. So we deploy the package. So students just log in and the tutorials are already embedded into their instance of RStudio.
Right. Yeah, I see. So, but you're sort of done with having your own server and all of that, is it?
For teaching, yes. I mean, I still have it for my own amusement.
Yeah, but yeah, for teaching. No, that's really interesting to know. Thanks.
Okay, thanks very much, Andy.